Members, we're going to take up the supplemental files, starting with the second reading. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 847 with amendments and Senate Bill 1072 with amendments.
All bills will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Okay, the following members, if you please come to the floor, we're going to start with your bills. Assemblymember Torres, Fior, Monning, Cotto, Fletcher, Bill Berryhill, Valines, Blakesley, Logue, Saldana, Gaines, Chesbro, Delatorre, Smythe, Jones. Those members. Mr. Bill Berryhill. Calling Mr. Bill Berryhill. Mr. Fior, Mr. Cotto. File item 208, AB 1942. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1942 by Assemblymember Fletcher, an act relating to vehicles.
Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, current statute does not allow drivers to affix or place objects on their windshield due to the risk of distraction. However, there are currently exemptions for certain devices, including sun visors, rearview mirrors, toll tags, and GPS positioning devices. AB 1942 merely extends this exemption to include video event recorders, a new technology used mostly by parents and teen drivers to coach good driving behavior. We've worked extensively with the CHP to ensure this exemption is safe, and it mirrors that for GPS and toll tags. We've also worked extensively in multiple committees to address privacy concerns that have been raised. This bill has received broad bipartisan support, and I would request your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Fletcher moves the call. Members, since we are in the last 2 days of the session, there is no one-day wait on the concurrence. So all the concurrence items are eligible, and we will be taking up the ones that are eligible at this moment. If we could ask Mr. Cotto, Mr. Bill Berryhill, Mr. Valines, Mr. Blakesley, Mr. Bill Berryhill. File item 205, AB 2770. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2770 by Assemblymember Monning, an act relating to employment.
Mr. Monning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, AB 2770 is back for concurrence. It is a bipartisan effort that I'm authoring with Assemblymember Bill Berryhill to address the issue of the underground economy. AB 2770 has been amended in the Senate to establish a pilot program to investigate employment and payment practices within the swimming pool and spa construction industry's underground economy. It would require the EDD, in consultation with the Franchise Tax Board, the Department of Justice, the Department of Insurance, and the Labor and Development Agency, as well as industry representatives, to develop and implement a set of criteria that, when met by an employer, would trigger a recommendation for an audit or investigation by appropriate tax authorities to determine if the employer is in violation of statutes relating to employee wages, hours, and working conditions. The bill is specific in saying that it will target only those employers that operate in the underground economy in flagrant violation of the law, and not employers that commit minor or inadvertent violations of existing law. Because this issue has not been adequately addressed over the last several years due to California's budgetary constraints, law-abiding business owners are being forced out of business because they cannot compete. AB 2770 is a first step toward correcting the problem. This is to protect law-abiding employers, workers, and to bring more revenue into the state of California. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Berryhill.
Yeah, real briefly, Madam Speaker and members, I just want to thank my joint author, Bill Monning. This is a good bill. We got to get control of this underground economy in California. It takes the pressure off raising taxes. There's a lot of money out there that we lose because people are paying cash. So anyway, with that, I thank my joint author and ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Monning moves the call. File Item 210, AB 2597. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2597 by Assemblymember Bill Berryhill, an act relating to vehicles.
Mr. Berryhill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. While we're on a roll here, folks. Members, AB 2597 allows motorcycle dealers to take certain disputes with manufacturers to the California New Motor Vehicle Board for arbitration, helping to reduce litigation and court caseloads. Currently, multi-product line manufacturers force motorcycle dealers to stock items like lawnmowers, snowmobiles, ATVs, and jet skis, essentially forcing dealers to subsidize their less desirable products. This bill would simply allow dealers to have these types of issues fairly arbitrated before the New Motor Vehicle Board. AB 2597 does not interfere with private contracts. It simply provides a fairer process for settling disputes. And the cost of arbitration is borne by the dealers and the manufacturers, thereby costing the state no dollars. AB 2597 has received bipartisan support, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 Mr. Berryhill moves the call. File Item 219, AB 44. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 44 by former Assemblymember Blakeslee, presented by Assemblymember Smythe, an act relating to public improvements.
Mr. Smythe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, AB 44, authored by our former colleague, Senator Blakeslee, simply amends the eligibility of existing PACE programs for renewable energy to include power purchase agreements or leases with the third-party owners. Third-party ownership can result in savings of up to 25% to the homeowner compared to purchasing and maintaining the system themselves, thereby reducing the amount of debt a homeowner must take to receive clean energy. Again, this is a good bill for the consumers, allows those who don't have the means necessarily to purchase solar and other clean energy for their home to be able to lease that product, and it's received bipartisan support across the way. Ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File Item 214, ACR 181. Clerk will read.
Assembly concurrent Resolution 181 by Assemblymember Logue relative to the California Sikh American Awareness Appreciation Month.
Mr. Logue. Mr. Logue? Pass, pass and retain. File Item 204, AB 2765. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2765 by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary and act relating to civil actions.
Mr. Feuer.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. This is legislation that has only had yes votes on its journey through both houses. It's back here on concurrence. The bill pertains to the rules that govern lawsuits relating to the theft of art. It amends the statute of limitations in that regard and makes other changes to the rules that govern when you can bring such an action. I urge a continued degree of bipartisan support and an aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 43, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 206, AB 2792. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2792 by the Assembly Committee on Governmental Organization and Act relating to horse racing.
Mr. Cotto. Pass and retain. File item 209, AB 2485. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2485 by Assemblymember Fuhr, an act relating to courts.
Mr. Fuhr.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. This is legislation that enables California to charge lawyers who are practicing from other states in California what are called fees for what are pro hac vice, which means they are elsewhere, but they have the right to practice in California for this limited purpose. This allows for the increase in what they would pay. It also amends a section of code that relates to the circumstances in which disputes are governed between boards of condominium associations and members of those associations. I urge your concurrence in Senate amendments.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Mr. Fuhr moves the call. We're waiting to get the word. Is anyone taking Mr. Blakesley's bill up, ACR number 165? Who's taking Mr. Blakesley's bill up? Okay, file item 214, Mr. Logue, ACR number 181. Clerk will read.
Assembly concurring Resolution 181 by Assemblymember Logue relative to the California Sikh American Awareness and Appreciation Month.
Mr. Logue.
Thank you. I just want to ask the members to support this bill, this resolution. The Sikh community is a tremendous community in the state of California. They add a lot to my community. It's the largest in the country, is in Yuba and Sutter area, and I hereby ask you to support 181. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions or debates, we could take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The measure is adopted. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 203, AB 2762. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2762 by the Assembly Committee on Housing and Community Development and Act relating to housing and make an appropriation therefore.
Ms. Torres.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Assembly Bill 2762 is the Housing Committee's annual omnibus bill. It combines numerous minor, non-controversial changes to various sections of the law with housing into one measure to save time and money. The Senate amendments make a variety of technical and clarifying changes. I respectfully ask for your concurrence.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 48, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 206, AB 2792. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2792 by the Assembly Committee on Governmental Organization and Act relating to horse racing.
Mr. Cotto.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Members, this bill extends the sunset date by 3 years on California's participation in the National Thoroughbred Racing Association and changes the stallion award definition in state law to allow California stallions to be vested for their years of service regardless if the stallion later leaves the state. the Senate amendments, members, adds provisions extending the sunset date and makes technical and clarifying changes. I ask for your concurrence.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 53, noes 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. Mr. Cotto? Mr. Cotto? File item 207, AB 2793. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2793 by the Assembly Committee on Governmental Organization and Act relating to alcoholic beverages.
Mr. Cotto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This bill authorizes the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control to issue a club license. God, glasses are going out on me. Senate amendments permit a licensed wine grower to serve on the board of trustees of a nonprofit theater company operating a theater in the city of Livermore, and I ask for your concurrence.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 55, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 216, AB 1766. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1766 by Assemblymember Gaines and Act relating to Health and Human Services.
Mr. Gaines.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise in support of my bill, 1766. It's a good one. What it will do is it gives you, as the consumer, the opportunity to gather information for surgery. Okay, so let's say last year I injured my knee, had to get an ACL replacement, and I wanted to check the cost structure of doctor groups and of hospitals in my area to try to get the best quality of care at the best price. This is what this legislation will do. And it's good for the consumer. It provides transparency. I think the sorts of information that we need to make wise decisions and to help drive costs down. There are certain hospital groups throughout California that have gag clauses in their contracts with insurance companies that preclude this information from being available to you, the consumer, the health user. And so this is very similar to a bill carried by Senator Corbett. It passed out of the Senate earlier today on a vote of 28-6 on a bipartisan basis. The last time we heard this piece of legislation on the Assembly side went out with no votes. So I'd urge your support. Thank you.
Mr. Huffman.
A question of the author. Madam
Without objection.
Mr. Gaines, I'm confused. I'm reading the analysis that we have, and it appears to be for a Placer County pilot project sunset extension, and I think you've just presented a fairly different piece of legislation. I wonder if you could explain.
I apologize. I was given notice on another bill that I was supposed to present.
Mr. Gaines.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I apologize. They're both great bills. I just want you to know, and I hope I'll get bipartisan support on both of them. But this is AB 1766, and this is to help out with a pilot program in Placer County that we've used for our Health and Human Services Department. It affects welfare, probation, mental health systems, and it's a pilot program that's been very successful. When I was on the Board of Supervisors in Placer County, we got a lot of really good kudos from folks throughout the state of California for how we are implementing our Health and Human Services programs. And what it basically does is consolidate those services so you have one individual that is overseeing the entire process from beginning to end to make sure that you're providing streamlined services. So I would ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Hoffman, this is
I
the right
rise
bill,
in
isn't it?
support of this bill,
Okay, good.
Madam Speaker, in hopes, too, that everyone will pay attention. Could be a late night, and we don't want to inadvertently make any sausage around here.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 54, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 218, AB 635. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 635 by the Assembly Committee on Accountability and Administrative Review, an act relating to public contracts, and declaring an urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Delatorre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 635 is a committee bill for the Accountability and Administrative Review Committee. This is a result of a 3-month investigation that was triggered by a whistleblower on contracting procedures for school roofing projects. We found that as a result of some interactions between school districts and manufacturers, they end up producing closed bids on their projects. And what that produces is increased costs of 30 to 100% on these projects. We had significant testimony in the hearing. This was just a couple of months ago. That's why it has an urgency. This is very important. The bill does 2 simple things. Number 1, requires a disclosure that whoever does the bid specifications fills out a financial disclosure form to see if they have any financial relationship with the manufacturer. Number 2, it sets up an 800 number at the Attorney General's office so that whistleblowers in the future can call when they see that this is going on. The bill has gotten nothing but bipartisan support. It got 32 votes on the Senate floor. I urge your aye vote.
Ms. Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I also rise in support of this bill. The Assembly Accountability Committee found that routinely costs were being increased by 40 to 60% and sometimes often is 100%. It obviously directly affects the bottom line for our schools, for the taxpayers of California. This bill levels the playing field for competitive bidding in public school roof replacements. It does enjoy bipartisan support. It was amended to remove all state costs and mandates. There's no opposition from the Education Committee. This is a part of our ongoing effort to address transparency and accountability in state government, and I'd urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Mr. Torlakson.
I, too, rise in support of this measure. Every dime we can get toward the classroom, towards the kids, towards instruction makes sense, so I appreciate the great work the Accountability Committee has done on a bipartisan basis and urge support of this measure.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 66, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. Ayes 66, no 0 on the urgency. Ayes 66, no 0 on the measure. Senate amendments are concurred in. Mr. Valines, ACR, File 211, ACR 164. Clerk will read.
Assembly concur on Resolution 164 by Assembly Member Valines relative to the Deputy Sheriff Joel B. Wallenheimer Memorial Highway.
Mr. Valines.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Deputy Wallenheimer was killed in the line of duty this February while investigating a felony assault case in Fresno County. This will memorialize Deputy Sheriff Wallenheimer's sacrifice by naming a portion of State Highway Route 168 in his honor. This resolution has received no votes. I respectfully ask your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, we can take a voice vote on this item. Oh, but it's a fiscal resolution, so we need to take a roll call vote. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 60, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 220, AB 602. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 602 by Assemblymember Fiore, an act relating to land use.
Mr. Fiore.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. So I think most of us are familiar with housing elements. They're local communities' designs on how they're going to meet their affordable housing goals, their housing goals and their affordable housing goals in particular, in the jurisdictions in each of our districts. So for a long time, for years and years, more than 25 years, the rule was if an entity wanted to challenge a housing element as being deficient, then they had the length of time that the jurisdiction had to plan the housing element in which to bring that lawsuit. That time typically was 5 years, but we know of lawsuits that were brought 8, 10 years after the housing element was put together. That was the rule for about 25 years. Everything was going along fine. Occasionally, but rarely, lawsuits were brought, and affordable housing was focused on throughout the state. Then in 2008, something radical happened. A court of appeal issued a decision, and it said, we can't believe that this is what the legislature has intended regarding the time period in which you could sue. So we're going to make up a rule that doesn't exist anywhere in statute. We're going to say that if you want to challenge one of these housing elements because it doesn't have enough affordable housing in it, you have to file a notice within 90 days and then sue a year later, and that's it. A radical departure from 25 previous years. This has caused tremendous concern ever since the decision came down. Concern among many people, concern around housing advocates, the building industry, and also concern about what would happen to if we want to effectuate SB 375, the purpose of which is to get cities and counties to build in a more dense way with more affordable housing within a jurisdiction to cut down on traffic and pollution. So this bill is the result of negotiations that have proceeded ever since this lawsuit came down. And here's what the bill says. The bill says we're going to return the world to the way it looked before this court decision made up a rule. Now, many of us think that court decisions shouldn't make up rules that aren't grounded in legislation that we do. We're going to bring the world back to the way it looked before that lawsuit, but we're also going to make it more strict on people who want to challenge by lawsuit housing elements. So the same period of time, 5 years, will be the period in which they can sue, but the circumstances in which you can challenge such an element are much more narrow. That's the compromise that you have before you. And a compromise it is, because you'll see entities who support the bill who rarely are on the same side. The building industry and affordable housing advocates, realtors and nonprofit organizations are standing together to support this bill because, although they don't usually see themselves as allies on this, they recognize that this approach provides the certainty that builders need and the emphasis on affordable housing that all our communities need. I urge you to support this compromise with an aye vote.
Seeing Mr. Norby.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not prepared to support any bill that extends the time to allow lawsuits against cities and counties, but there definitely is a problem with imbalanced land use. Cities prefer businesses, they prefer retail because they get 1% of the gross back in the form of local site as sales tax. They tend not to want housing because the amount that they get back in property tax varies so much among cities and usually doesn't pay for the infrastructure needed for the housing. There is a tremendous imbalance there, and I think we do need a comprehensive approach to balance fiscal incentives in terms of local land uses, and the legislature has a role in that. But I don't know if this really is the approach that's going to address that tremendous problem, and I'm reluctant to support it for that reason.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Fiore, you may close.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Can I have permission to read briefly, please, Madam Speaker?
Without objection.
So I want to address the point that was just made about extending the period in which one can sue. I want to reiterate, this bill simply restores the period that existed for 25 years and was changed by one court decision by one panel of judges who made up, with no reference to statute, a new rule. So it's just restoring what the rule was before. And I do want to say, for the benefit of the last speaker, this is what the California Association of Realtors has to say about the impact of this statute. AB 602 will help clarify a long-standing provision, recently misinterpreted by the courts, to ensure that local governments follow the law on housing elements, density bonuses, and other requirements that assure a robust housing market for all economic segments. That is the point of this bill. The compromise is real. I urge your support.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 42, noes 17. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 217, AB 2761. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2761 by the Assembly Committee on Natural Resources and Act relating to natural resources.
Mr. Chesbro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. AB 2761 is a Natural Resources Committee bill consisting of non-controversial provisions. The Senate amendments add a provision authorizing the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection to assist local and regional urban greenways programs as part of urban forestry efforts. I respectfully ask for concurrence in Senate amendments.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 69, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 212, ACR 165. Clerk will read.
The Assembly concur on Resolution 165 by former Assembly Member Blakesley relative to the Mayor Dick DeWeese Memorial Highway.
Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'm presenting on behalf of Senator Blakesley. This bill designates a portion of State Highway 246 as Mayor Dick DeWeese Memorial Highway. Senate amendments to change the marker. Ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 64, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 213, ACR number 179. Clerk will read.
Assembly concur on Resolution 179 by Assembly Member John A. Perez relative to the Paul Johnson Highway.
Mr. Huffman.
Madam Speaker, members, actually, I have a different bill number, Madam Speaker. I had AB 2503 for the Speaker.
Is anyone taking up? Mr. Solario.
Sure, for the Speaker and for you, I'll take this up.
Thank you.
It's my honor. This bill designates a portion of the State Highway Route 55 in Orange County as the Paul Johnson Highway. As you might know, Paul Johnson began his broadcasting career in the 50s at a rock and roll station in Grand Forks, North Dakota. After some military service, he returned to Los Angeles and reported on traffic at various stations, including KNX, KZLA, KACE, et cetera, as we all know, in Southern California, we all listen to traffic news, and he was on the news air for years and years. So with that, it's our honor to try to designate the southbound portion of State Highway Route 55 between Catella Avenue and Chapman Avenue in Orange County as the Paul Johnson Highway. On behalf of the Speaker and I, ask for your aye vote on this.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 66, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 215, AB 291. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 291 by Assembly Member Saldana, an act relating to commercial fishing.
Ms. Saldana.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. AB 291 is an industry-sponsored bill. It updates the lobster trap specification so that lobster fishermen are not fined unreasonably because our laws are not keeping up with the new traps that they are using. The bill is sponsored by the California Lobster and Trap Fishermen's Association. It came out of the Senate with 32 yes votes, no votes. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 53, noes 4. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 222, AB 2764. Mr. Fuhrer, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 2764 by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary and Act relating to the State Bar Act.
Mr. Fuhrer. Pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, I am re-referring SB 1398, Desaulnier, to appropriations. Mr. Fuhrer, file item 222.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. So this is the annual State Bar dues bill. It keeps the dues at their current level, and Senate amendments add a provision that allows lawyers to voluntarily designate $10 of their current fee to be attributed to programs that provide free legal services to people who are being victimized by foreclosure fraud, for example, or who are losing their health care benefits. I'd urge your continued support.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 65, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 88, SB 1425. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 1425 by Senator Simitian and Act relating to public retirement systems.
Mr. Tirico.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. SB 1425 establishes a number of provisions designed to curb the practice of pension spiking in the state's public employee retirement systems, CalSTRS and CalPERS. A companion measure by the Speaker Pro Tem, Ms. Ma, AB 1987, along with the collective bargaining agreements recently ratified by this body and signed by the Governor, represent comprehensive pension reform by stemming the tide of pension spiking and by significantly changing the pension formulas, including employee contributions and changing the retirement age back 5 years, 5 to 10 years, depending on the bargaining unit. These measures taken together constitute real pension reform and will put our pensions in California on solid financial ground for years to come. Respectfully ask for an aye vote on the measure.
Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 65, no 0. Measure passes. Any members have any other bills they wish to take up today? Okay, members, we're going to take up the consent calendar. We are at the second day consent calendar. Does any member wish to remove an item from the second day consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, the clerk will read.
Assembly concurrent Resolution 187 by Assemblymember Torres relative to Red Ribbon Week.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 65, no 0.
Assembly Joint Resolution 47.
I 65 no 0.
House Resolution 35.
I 65 no 0.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 86.
I 65 no 0.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 106.
I 65 no 0.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 110.
I 65 no 0.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 116.
I 65 no 0.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 118.
I 65 no 0.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 121.
I 65 no 0.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 124.
I 65 no 0.
And Senate Joint Resolution 35.
I 65 no 0. Fall item 201, SB 847. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 847 by Senator Steinberg, an act relating to education, finance, make an appropriation therefore, and declare an urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Torlakson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this bill passed with bipartisan support. It's a jobs bill to help us have school site personnel, teachers, and classified employees who are helping with the instruction, helping with our student success. This would bring about 16,500 jobs that would be saved. Last year, the tragedy of the budget cuts resulted in 17,000 teachers being laid off and countless tens of thousands of classified getting reduced hours and losing their jobs. This would help right now as schools starting save jobs that are already laid off or save jobs that are needed in our system. It's $1.2 billion. It's the federal jobs bill targeted our schools. It's received bipartisan support in the Education Committee and in the Appropriations Committee. It's desperately needed. A great bipartisan effort occurred in Congress. We had the AFT and the CTA, NEA, all working together to accomplish this great measure to help our students. I would urge an aye vote.
All right, very well. Seeing and hearing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote, all those vote who desire to vote, all those vote who desire to vote, all those vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 68, no 0 on the urgency. Aye 68, no 0 on the measure. Measure is adopted. Move to file item SB number 1071 by Calderon. Ms. Ma will be presenting. 202. SB 1071 by Calderon. Ms. Ma will present. Ms. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 1072 by Senator Calderon, an act relating to horse racing.
Ms. Ma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This is an important bill for the state's economy. The racing industry employs thousands of residents and generates millions in other economic activity. The bill has three key provisions. One, it establishes a funding source that would be available to help promote the Breeders' Cup should it decide to choose to race at a California racetrack on a permanent or near permanent basis. We're in competition with the states of New York and Kentucky as to where the Breeders' Cup ultimately decides to locate, and this bill better positions us to win this competition and reap the economic benefits of increased tourism and other spending. The second key provision of the bill would generate an estimated $20 to $30 million in new owner purses by slightly increasing the takeout rate on specified exotic wagers, which is critically important to the industry for this reason. California's owners' purses are no longer competitive with the purses offered in other states where their racetracks can operate slot machines, which is illegal in California. Without attractive owner purses, you lose owners. Without owners, you have fewer horses and smaller race fields, which means less wagering. It's a downward spiral that's basically describes the current decline of the state's racing industry. And third, the third bill of this piece authorizes the California Horse Racing Board to license entities to operate exchange wagering systems that accept exchange wagers from the public, so long as the process is conducted in compliance with the Federal Interstate Horse Racing Act and rules and regulations adopted by the board. As an important concession to the opponents, the authorization is delayed until May 2012, which should give the California Horse Racing Board sufficient time to develop its regulations and the racing industry time to develop its business models. Exchange wagering is defined as a means of parimutuel wagering in which two or more persons place identically opposite wagers on a horse race. Exchange wagering is popular in England and Australia, where it has proven to help attract new fans, and new fans are exactly what this dying industry needs. Importantly, the exchange wagering agreements would have to be agreed to by both the racetrack and the horsemen's organization participating in the race meet, all subject to the California Horse Racing approval. The bill has been developed in close consultation with the Governor's Office and the California Horse Racing Board and is supported by key segments of the racing industry, including Del Mar, Hollywood Park, Oak Tree, the thoroughbred owners and breeders, the fairs, and the jockeys and the clerks that work in the industry. Thank you for your consideration of this legislation. Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Ma. Mr. Garrett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask for your support of this bill. The horse racing industry is in trouble. This bill will assist the horse racing industry both by adding some more dollars to the purses to invite horses back. We're losing too many horses throughout the state of California as it is to the East Coast, along with the trainers and owners moving their horses back to Florida and New York and all over the East Coast because their purses are now paying more than our tracks can afford to pay. This also helps us in recruiting the Breeders' Cup to California, something all of us would like to see make its permanent home here in California. Additionally, it will help in the marketing of horse racing. I do have some questions that have been addressed as it relates to exchange wagering and the necessity that I feel for a complete review of exchange wagering, and that is why I'm glad to see that amendment. And at this point, I'd like to say I urge a aye vote on this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Ms. Ma, do you have any closing remarks? All right. Seeing and hearing no further discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Ayes 46, noes 10. Measure is adopted. Mr. Hackman, for what purpose?
Just a question, Mr. Speaker. I think we got an answer. I didn't know if it was a two-thirds bill or not. I guess apparently it's not.
No, it's not. It's a majority vote. We'll call on the file item 221 AB 1653 by Mr. Jones. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1653 by Assemblymember Jones, an act relating to Medi-Cal, making appropriation therefore and declaring an urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. AB 1653, back in the Assembly on concurrence and Senate amendments, is legislation designed to further the effort of last year's AB 1383, which was the hospital provider fee, that takes advantage of additional enhanced federal Medicaid funding under the American Recovery and Stimulus Act. This legislation is designed to address requirements of the Federal Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services to ensure that we are eligible for and eligible to take advantage of the enhanced Medicaid funding. The bill is critically essential to our hospital healthcare delivery system, which has been inadequately reimbursed for years for the services it provides to Medi-Cal patients. This bill will result in upwards to $3 billion being brought into our health care system, also to help provide for assistance to children. The bill has enjoyed bipartisan support as it's moved through, has no opposition, and I would ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're all aware of the overcrowding problems in our hospitals. Just last weekend, I saw it firsthand. My son was riding his horse, kind of like a bucking bronco, and took a header off. There we were in the emergency room, 5 stitches. We see the overcrowding problems. This bill goes a long way to helping our hospitals achieve the funding they need in a proper way, and I'm pleased to support it.
All right. Seeing no further debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 67, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. Mr. Calderon, for what purpose do you rise?
Yes, move to return to motions and resolutions.
Without objection.
Request unanimous consent to waive the final notice requirement to allow Appropriations Committee to meet on Tuesday, August 31st. During session or upon the call of the chair to hear SB 691 by Mr. Yee and SB 1398 by Desaulniers in a room to be determined.
Without objection, clerk will note. Mr. Blumenfield, I believe you have. Mr. Blumenfield, you have an adjourn in memory?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I do.
You want to take that up now, sir?
Thank you.
Okay.
I rise today to adjourn in the memory of Bruce Ackerman.
Members, I would ask your members, we have an adjourn in memory. I'll ask that you give your respect to the person speaking. Focus your attention to Mr. Blumenfield. You may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise today to adjourn in the memory of Bruce Ackerman, who passed away on August 26th after a 6.5-year battle with cancer. Bruce touched the lives of many and had a profound impact on those he worked with to further economic development and stimulate business growth in the San Fernando Valley, Los Angeles County, and throughout the state. Bruce Ackerman lent his experience with a variety of economic development associations and organizations, and he shared his time freely with numerous nonprofits. He was passionate about marketing the region's economic attractiveness, bringing new businesses to the area. His motto was, better business, better jobs, better communities. In the year 2000, Bruce became the president and CEO of the Valley Economic Alliance and extended the organization's reach beyond business assistance to include workforce preparedness and improving the quality of education. Throughout his life, Bruce was also committed to helping others through his volunteer efforts, whether at economic development organizations like the CRA or CalEd or LAEDC, or with various for-profits like West Hills Hospitals or Project Grad, the Boys and Girls Club, or the Valley Interfaith Council. Bruce was committed to causes that positively influenced the lives of everyone around him. As he used to say, when you give to yourself, it goes with you. When you give to others, it's eternal. Bruce Ackerman is survived by his wife, Kathy Coleman Ackerman, his children Michael, David, Robin, and Linda, 11 grandchildren, his mother, Jean Ackerman, and brothers Neil, Scott, and Craig, and sister Brenda. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, as we adjourn in the memory of Bruce Ackerman.
Thank you so much, sir. Please forward the names to the clerk, please.
Okay, members, we have 8 bills on call. Are there any members who do not wish to take their bill up on call? Please let us know. Otherwise, we're going to take them up in order. Pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, I am referring AB 2036, Bill Berry Hill's bill, to local government. Members, we are going to lift the calls except for file item 29, SB 399. So we will start with file item 30, SB 1275. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 29, noes 36. Measure fails. Does he want? File item 67, SJR 14. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 35, noes 27. Mr. Amiano asks for reconsideration. Notices reconsideration. Wharf bill, without reference to file. SB 1192. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 47, noes 26. Measure passes. File item 208, AB 1942. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 66, noes 4. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 205, AB 2770. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 54, noes 11. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 210, AB 2597. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 67, noes 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 209, AB 2485. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 49, noes 23. Senate amendments are concurred in. Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker. I request unanimous consent to waive the final notice to allow local government to meet and hear AB 2036 by Mr. Berryhill upon call of the chair in a room to be determined.
Without objection. Members, the schedule for tomorrow. Session will start at 10 a.m. Republican caucus will start at 9 a.m. in the rules room. Tomorrow, session at 10 a.m. Tomorrow, Republican caucus at 9 a.m. in the Rules Committee room. Mr. Gilmore would like to recognize a guest today. Mr. Gilmore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, it's a real pleasure that I have the opportunity to introduce actually my district staff that travel all the way up from Hanford and Bakersfield. This evening I have my district director, Noah Lawson, also Jane Chaklassian, and actually, members, the only two district workers in Bakersfield, my homeless representatives, Alex Garcia, Stephen Warren, who work out of their tent in the Martin Luther King Park in Bakersfield. Would you welcome them, please?
Mr. Smythe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I would like to call a local government committee right now in the Rules Committee room just to hear two quick bills. So if we could have local government in the Rules Committee.
Mr. Smythe, upon adjournment. Upon adjournment, please. Thank you.
Since you said please, okay. Upon
Thank
adjournment.
Mr. Fuhr.
Madam Speaker, if it's still timely, I'd like to request immediate transmittal of item 2, SB 1192, to the Senate.
Without objection.
Thank you.
We have one bill on call. Mr. Ruskin.
Also, if it's still timely, I'd like to request immediate transmission to the Senate for item 104 that passed earlier today, SB 608.
We are processing all bills that we have passed today to the Senate upon adjournment. Ms. Harkey.
Okay, that was my question. I'm sorry, Madam Speaker. AJR 46.
It's going to the Senate. We're ready to lift the call. Lifting the call on file item 29, SB 399. Clerk will post. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote.
All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to leave. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to leave. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote.